Please subscribe, like and share this content. It means a lot to us. Thank you in advance.
To U.S. Code Chapter 17A, Congressional Budget and Fiscal Operation. To U.S. Code Subchapter I, Congressional Budget Process. To U.S. Code Paragraph 640, House Approval of Regular Appropriation Bills. It shall not be in order in the House of Representatives to consider any resolution providing for an adjournment period of more than 3 calendar days during the month of July until the House of Representatives has approved annual appropriation bills providing new budget authority under the jurisdiction of all the subcommittees of the Committee on Appropriations for the fiscal year beginning on October 1st of such year. For purposes of this section, the Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations of the House of Representatives shall periodically advise the Speaker as to changes in jurisdiction among its various subcommittees. To U.S. Code Paragraph 641, Reconciliation. A. Inclusion of reconciliation directives in concurrent resolutions on the budget. A concurrent resolution on the budget for any fiscal year, to the extent necessary to effectuate the provisions and requirements of such resolution, shall 1. Specify the total amount by which a. New budget authority for such fiscal year, b. Budget authority initially provided for prior fiscal years, c. New entitlement authority which is to become effective during such fiscal year, and d. Credit authority for such fiscal year, contained in laws, bills, and resolutions within the jurisdiction of a committee, is to be changed and direct that committee to determine and recommend changes to accomplish a change of such total amount. 2. Specify the total amount by which revenues are to be changed and direct that the committees having jurisdiction to determine and recommend changes in the revenue laws, bills, and resolutions to accomplish a change of such total amount. 3. Specify the amounts by which the statutory limit on the public debt is to be changed and direct the committee having jurisdiction to recommend such change. Or 4. Specify and direct any combination of the matters described in paragraphs 1, 2, and 3, including the direction to achieve deficit reduction. B. Legislative procedure if a concurrent resolution containing directives to one or more committees to determine and recommend changes in laws, bills, or resolutions is agreed to in accordance with subsection A, and 1. Only one committee of the House or the Senate is directed to determine and recommend changes. That committee shall promptly make such determination and recommendations and report to its House reconciliation legislation containing such recommendations. Or 2. More than one committee of the House or the Senate is directed to determine and recommend changes. Each such committee so directed shall promptly make such determination and recommendations and submit such recommendations to the Committee on the Budget of its House, which, upon receiving all such recommendations, shall report to its House reconciliation legislation carrying out all such recommendations without any substantive revision. For purposes of this subsection, a reconciliation resolution is a concurrent resolution directing the Clerk of the House of Representatives or the Secretary of the Senate, as the case may be, to make specified changes in bills and resolutions which have not been enrolled. C. Compliance with reconciliation directions. 1. Any committee of the House of Representatives or the Senate that is directed, pursuant to a concurrent resolution on the budget, to determine and recommend changes of the type described in paragraphs 1 and 2 of subsection A with respect to laws within its jurisdiction, shall be deemed to have complied with such directions. A. If I. The amount of the changes of the type described in paragraph 1 of such subsection recommended by such committee do not exceed or fall below the amount of the changes such committee was directed by such concurrent resolution to recommend under that paragraph by more than I. In the Senate, 20% of the total of the amounts of the changes such committee was directed to make under paragraphs 1 and 2 of such subsection, or 2. In the House of Representatives, 20% of the sum of the absolute value of the changes the committee was directed to make under paragraph 1 and the absolute value of the changes the committee was directed to make under paragraph 2 and 2. The amount of the changes of the type described in paragraph 2 of such subsection recommended by such committee do not exceed or fall below the amount of the changes such committee was directed by such concurrent resolution to recommend under that paragraph by more than I. In the Senate, 20% of the total of the amounts of the changes such committee was directed to make under paragraphs 1 and 2 of such subsection, or 2. In the House of Representatives, 20% of the sum of the absolute value of the changes the committee was directed to make under paragraph 1 and the absolute value of the changes the committee was directed to make under paragraph 2, and b. If the total amount of the changes recommended by such committee is not less than the total of the amounts of the changes such committee was directed to make under paragraphs 1 and 2 of such subsection. 2a. Upon the reporting to the Committee on the Budget of the Senate of a recommendation that shall be deemed to have complied with such directions solely by virtue of this subsection, the chairman of that committee may file with the Senate appropriately revised allocations under section 633a of this title and provide functional levels and aggregates to carry out this subsection. b. Upon the submission to the Senate of a conference report recommending a reconciliation bill or resolution which a committee shall be deemed to have complied with such directions solely by virtue of this subsection, the chairman of the Committee on the Budget of the Senate may file with the Senate appropriately revised allocations under section 633a of this title and provide functional levels and aggregates to carry out this subsection. C. Allocations, functional levels, and aggregates revised pursuant to this paragraph shall be considered to be allocations, functional levels, and aggregates contained in the concurrent resolution on the budget pursuant to Section 632 of this title. D. Upon the filing of revised allocations pursuant to this paragraph, the reporting committee shall report revised allocations pursuant to Section 633B of this title to carry out this subsection. D. Limitation on amendments to reconciliation bills and resolutions. 1. It shall not be in order in the House of Representatives to consider any amendment to a reconciliation bill or reconciliation resolution if such amendment would have the effect of increasing any specific budget outlays above the level of such outlays provided in the bill or resolution for the fiscal years covered by the reconciliation instructions set forth in the most recently agreed to concurrent resolution on the budget, or would have the effect of reducing any specific federal revenues below the level of such revenues provided in the bill or resolution for such fiscal years, unless such amendment makes at least an equivalent reduction in other specific budget outlays, an equivalent increase in other specific federal revenues, or an equivalent combination thereof for such fiscal years, except that a motion to strike a provision providing new budget authority or new entitlement authority may be in order. 2. It shall not be in order in the Senate to consider any amendment to a reconciliation bill or reconciliation resolution if such amendment would have the effect of decreasing any specific budget outlay reductions below the level of such outlay reductions provided for the fiscal years covered in the reconciliation instructions which relate to such bill or resolution set forth in a resolution providing for reconciliation, or would have the effect of reducing federal revenue increases below the level of such revenue increases provided for such fiscal years in such instructions relating to such bill or resolution, unless such amendment makes a reduction in other specific budget outlays, an increase in other specific federal revenues, or a combination thereof, for such fiscal years at least equivalent to any increase in outlays or decrease in revenues provided by such amendment, except that a motion to strike a provision shall always be in order. 3. Paragraphs 1 and 2 shall not apply if a declaration of war by the Congress is in effect. 4. For purposes of this section, the levels of budget outlays and federal revenues for a fiscal year shall be determined on the basis of estimates made by the Committee on the Budget of the House of Representatives or of the Senate, as the case may be. 5. The Committee on Rules of the House of Representatives may make and order amendments to achieve changes specified by reconciliation directives contained in a concurrent resolution on the budget if a committee or committees of the House fail to submit recommended changes to its Committee on the Budget pursuant to its instruction. E. Procedure in Senate. 1. Except as provided in paragraph 2, the provisions of Section 636 of this title for the consideration in the Senate of concurrent resolutions on the budget and conference reports thereon shall also apply to the consideration in the Senate of reconciliation bills reported under subsection B and conference reports thereon. 2. Debate in the Senate on any reconciliation bill reported under subsection B, and all amendments thereto and debatable motions and appeals in connection therewith, shall be limited to not more than 20 hours. F. Completion of reconciliation process. It shall not be in order in the House of Representatives to consider any resolution providing for an adjournment period of more than 3 calendar days during the month of July until the House of Representatives has completed action on the reconciliation legislation for the fiscal year beginning on October 1st of the calendar year to which the adjournment resolution pertains, if reconciliation legislation is required to be reported by the concurrent resolution on the budget for such fiscal year. G. Limitation on changes to Social Security Act. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, it shall not be in order in the Senate or the House of Representatives to consider any reconciliation bill or reconciliation resolution reported pursuant to a concurrent resolution on the budget agreed to under Section 632 or 635 of this title, or a joint resolution pursuant to Section 970 of this title, or any amendment thereto or conference report thereon, that contains recommendations with respect to the old age, survivors, and disability insurance program established under Title II of the Social Security Act, 42 U.S.C. 401 et sec. 2 U.S. Code Paragraph 642, budget-related legislation must be within appropriate levels. A. Enforcement of budget aggregates. 1. In House of Representatives except as provided by subsection C, after the Congress has completed action on a concurrent resolution on the budget for a fiscal year, it shall not be in order in the House of Representatives to consider any bill, joint resolution, amendment, motion, or conference report providing new budget authority or reducing revenues, if A. The enactment of that bill or resolution as reported, B. The adoption and enactment of that amendment, or C. The enactment of that bill or resolution in the form recommended in that conference report, would cause the level of total new budget authority or total outlays set forth in the applicable concurrent resolution on the budget for the first fiscal year to be exceeded, or would cause revenues to be less than the level of total revenues set forth in that concurrent resolution for the first fiscal year or for the total of that first fiscal year and the ensuing fiscal years for which allocations are provided under Section 633A of this title, except when a declaration of war by the Congress is in effect. 2. In Senate after a concurrent resolution on the budget is agreed to, it shall not be in order in the Senate to consider any bill, joint resolution, amendment, motion, or conference report that A. would cause the level of total new budget authority or total outlays set forth for the first fiscal year in the applicable resolution to be exceeded, or B. would cause revenues to be less than the level of total revenues set forth for that first fiscal year or for the total of that first fiscal year and the ensuing fiscal years in the applicable resolution for which allocations are provided under Section 633A of this title. 3. Enforcement of Social Security levels in Senate. After a concurrent resolution on the budget is agreed to, it shall not be in order in the Senate to consider any bill, joint resolution, amendment, motion, or conference report that would cause a decrease in Social Security surpluses or an increase in Social Security deficits relative to the levels set forth in the applicable resolution for the first fiscal year or for the total of that fiscal year and the ensuing fiscal years for which allocations are provided under Section 633A of this title. B. Social Security levels. 1. In general, for purposes of subsection A. 3. Social Security surpluses equal the excess of Social Security revenues over Social Security outlays in a fiscal year, or years with such an excess, and Social Security deficits equal the excess of Social Security outlays over Social Security revenues in a fiscal year, or years with such an excess. 2. Tax treatment. For purposes of subsection A. 3. No provision of any legislation involving a change in Chapter 1 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, 26 U.S.C. 1 et sec. shall be treated as affecting the amount of Social Security revenues or outlays unless that provision changes the income tax treatment of Social Security benefits. C. Exception in House of Representatives. Subsection A. 1 shall not apply in the House of Representatives to any bill, joint resolution, or amendment that provides new budget authority for a fiscal year or to any conference report on any such bill or resolution, if 1. the enactment of that bill or resolution as reported, 2. the adoption and enactment of that amendment, or 3. the enactment of that bill or resolution in the form recommended in that conference report, would not cause the appropriate allocation of new budget authority made pursuant to Section 633A of this title for that fiscal year to be exceeded.